Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of 4Fusion Friday. Yeah, it's the first Friday of the month, is it not, gentlemen? Yes, it is.
It
And what do
is.
we do on the first Friday of the month? We talk fusion here on the show. Let me introduce the crew. Of course, the two co-creators of 4Fusion Friday, George Lamie and Eric Porter, in the house. And he's back once again, that natty guy, Chris Fox from Helmet and Nats. What's going on, Chris?
How you doing?
Good
Thanks
to
for
have you
having me
back
back.
again, man.
Oh yeah, talking fusion. I'm the '70s fusion guy.
That's right. That's right. Up there
Ragu.
we go. So as always, we'll kickstart the episode with George and some upcoming new releases, and then he'll take us through the Foursquare for today and the George's pick. So George, take it away.
All right. I picked up three 2025 releases in January. So that's a nice little start.
There you go.
First, BEQ or Beck, I don't know, the common denominator. This is I've got very, very scant information on these guys. They're from some kind of Eastern Bloc Slavic country over there. Quartet for most of it. I hear a guest trumpet on a track, you know, that kind of thing, but guitar, bass, drums, keys. I can't really put my thumb on their sound. I was searching today, listened to it again today, trying to figure out who these guys sound like. It really didn't land on anything, but I would suggest it's on all the streamers. I would suggest checking it out because I think it's a real good listen. Probably my favorite of the three that I'm going to talk about. Next, we got Igor Wilcox Quartet, Time Traveler. This is his 2017. He had his debut that was in my top five from that year. And since then, he's had three consecutive live albums with, a mix of a little bit of new material and then rehash. So he was definitely due for a new studio album, and here it is. This is bass, drums, keys, and sax. They're Brazilian, so there's a little Latin element, but not really. There's a little jazz element too. But again, good stuff. It's on Bandcamp if you want to go check it out, and he is selling hard copies as well. So, lastly, we got Crocofant 6, um, band out of Norway. Their sixth album, obviously, the last two were a different lineup, and this is a trio. The last two were quintets with keyboards and bass. This is guitar, just guitar, sax, drums. Um, Eric, you're the one that clued into this first. What would you say about it?
I really like this. I think Pete, when he did his review, mentioned it as a grower, and that really was what it was.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought maybe a little too much sax for me, but these guys, and I think I put this in my review, it's energy. These guys are energy pretty much start to finish. There's one slower track, I think the second to last song. I loved it. I thought the guitar player was very raw. And Pete, I think you mentioned the John McLaughlin influence
He's
from him.
explosive in spots, and the
Um,
sax is also high energy. It's really
yeah.
good.
And I think that's what really put it across, George. I just thought, to capture that kind of energy on a studio record, I was really impressed with this.
Retro sounding?
Uh,
Yeah, in a way, I guess.
Mm.
It doesn't sound overly 70s to me. There are little elements, but it's just high energy stuff, and it's pretty rocking and raw.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you can like Eric mentioned, you can hear a little McLaughlin in his guitar playing, and but the sax is like it's a lot more
maybe a little
bombastic than a lot of
Crimson
sax
or
guys from the 70s, I
Crimson or
think.
Soft Machine, maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yeah, maybe a
there's
little Soft
crimson there.
Machine, a little like Coltrane at his noisiest. Yeah, I mean, there's another band too on the same label that just came out with a new record called The Verge, and it's kind of cut from the same cloth. So there's some great stuff coming out of Norway these days, on
Mm.
both the jazz rock and fusion and prog side. So yeah, I like this one the best. This is really good.
I'll check
Yeah.
it.
At any rate, I recommend all three of these this month. They're all, worth checking out. That's it on new releases. So, in keeping with the yearly thing we do on the channel, Pete does for his morning show albums that are 50 years old in 2025, which equates to 1975. Um, so when the idea of doing a 1975 square came up, I instantly went to a couple albums that, ag- again, I don't know how they haven't made it onto the show before. And I mentioned those to Pete, and he suggested the other two. And as it turns out, not only is it a 1975 square, but it's also a drummer theme square.
Yep.
So you got Billy Cobham, A Funky Tide of Sings, Alphonse Mouzon, Mind Transplant,
Has he given you problems there, George?
yeah, Lenny White,
I
Venusian
got you,
Summer,
George. I got you.
Yeah.
and Tony Williams, Lifetime. Believe it. So, Eric, I'm keen to hear what you've come up with this month. What is your number four?
You and I have talked a bit. We never give away where we're putting things, but we've had some back and forth on this. Always tough. There's little things on three of the four that to me just it was okay, here's a little weak spot, but you don't want to focus on that. And what I'm going with at number four is the Billy Cobham. But I do want to say that the horn arrangements on this are fantastic. Um, is it Skunk Funk? I mean, that just kills me. I love that track. The only thing, we talked about the 10-minute drum solo, I guess for drummers, have at it. For me, it just kind of
Not on a
doesn't work
studio record, right?
for a studio record. It was I heard it and I'm like, okay, I can expect that from a drummer, but at the same time, little long there, Billy. And then the last track kind of loses me. I don't know why. That one I really had trouble connecting with. The rest of the album I really like. I really like the horns. I was really into it. There's a very 70s vibe on this, which, to be expected, but there's a couple things where I'm like, ooh, that sounds like an old police show little theme going on there or something, but the horns are terrific on this. I think that kind of sets it apart from the other three. You really get some really tight horn arrangements, very funky. There's obviously rock in this, and you get the fusion stuff. And I think I like that about all four of them. There's a lot of rock element in these records. Uh, so I thought, again, it's always hard to rank these, but I got to go with Billy at number four.
How about you, Chris? Where are you going to start?
This was tough. Um, Four of the premier 70s fusion drummers. My four solo albums by really the four of the best, right? From the
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
Um, I went with this one. And Venetian Summer by Lenny White. Lenny White was the drummer in Return to Forever. And I had this album, I've had this for a long time, and I haven't listened to it in a long time. But I listened to it about close to 10 times in the last few weeks. And I got to tell you, none of this stuff stuck with me. Like nothing jumped out on this album for me. Um, Although they all sound great, they all play great, I just think the tunes are a little weak because nothing really, grabbed my attention. Um, there's like two funk tracks that start the album, funk bass fusion. Then there's the Venetian Summer Suite, and there's like some interesting weird almost like cinematic John Williams type music on this that comes before this suite. Almost like it's from a Steven Spielberg movie, and then it goes into these wild jams. Um, the one thing that I remember hearing that I liked was Al Di Meola plays a really great solo on I think Prince.
Yeah.
Princess of the
Prince, right?
Sea.
And also Larry Coryell. It's a guitar shred fest, that tune. There's a Larry Coryell solo, and then there's an Al Di Meola solo, and then they duel back and forth, and that's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, what else is? I think there's isn't Ray Gomez on this one.
Yep.
There's a
Yeah.
really good Ray Gomez solo on, I think, Morning Drive. I like that
Meaning
tune.
Drive.
Right? But otherwise, like nothing like it's kind of a mixed bag. There's a little bit of funk, a lot of jamming. Then you have that orchestral cinematic stuff. It's like a mishmash album. Lenny sounds good though. I mean, they all play well. Everybody sounds good, but yeah, it's my number four.
Pete, what are your thoughts?
Well, all four of these are great albums. I love all four of these drummers, and I think my number four was the easiest to rank out of the four of them. The other three were a little tougher, and ironically, my favorite drummer of the four comes in at number four, and that's the Billy Cobham album. Uh, Mainly because, as we've already discussed, putting a near 10-minute long drum solo on a studio album is just never a good idea. It's one thing if you got a double live album and you got a drum solo there. Fine. He's amazing. I love him. I just don't want to hear it on a studio record. I love the horns, like Eric mentioned. I think Schofield is doing some really tasty stuff on this record. Like Panhandler is so good. I love Sorcerer. Their version of Skunk Funk, some Skunk Funk is really good. I mean, I love having the Brecker brothers on here and all these other players. You got Walt Fowler and Tom Malone. I mean, these are guys that are just so important to the scene at the time. And it's a good funky album. It's got some good rock stuff on it. I like it. It's maybe not my one of my top two or three Cobham solo records, but I think it's still really, really good. And like I think a little thing like having of 10 minutes of this album be drum solo probably moves it to number four for me. I think with each of these albums, especially like number three and number four and number three, there's like one little instance that stops each album from being number one or two. Because we're really nitpicking here because these are really, really great albums, and the lineups on both of them are just ridiculous. So, yeah, Funky Thought of Sings is my number four. Not by much. It's a really good album. Pains me to put Cobb at number four because I love him, but someone's got to go there.
Number four is Lenny White. Um, yeah, when we finalized this lineup, I start looking through my stuff to, see what I got. And I don't have the Lenny White. And I was like, why don't I have this again? So I look and I got it as files. So I start listening to the files. And I remember why I don't have it. Like Chris said, the first two tracks are cool funk, but pretty pedestrian. It's not exactly jumping out at me. The Venusian Summer Suite, it's a 10-minute song. With the first 5 minutes, nothing happens. Yeah, it's cinematic. It's kind of empty. I mean, and then it comes in and it doesn't rock my world. Mating Drive, I love. That that's a great song. Ray Gomez killing it. I mean, that's a really, really good song. The whole album was like that, we'd have a real happening here. Um, the Prince of the Sea, yeah, it's a guitar fest, but the moments around it are also kind of uneventful for me.
Mm.
So it doesn't surprise me that I never did get the hard copy of this. I think, sure, Andy Edwards would probably like to kill me right now, but to me, this album is just decent. I mean, he loves this album, but for me, it's just like, it's okay. So easy four for me. Eric?
It's my number three, but I'm going to disagree with you on Prince of the Sea. That kills me. I love that. Hearing Coryell and Al going back and forth. I think it's terrific, but again, that's what I love to hear. So you could do that to me all day long, and I'm fine with it. And I agree with you, Mating Drive. That's the best track on there. Ray Gomez is on fire. Um, I love the tempo of that too, for some reason. That just feels like Lenny is driving the train and they are just going for broke. I get what you're saying. The suite kind of stops the album. I like the funky stuff. So Chicken Fried and the second track, I forget the name.
Away go
Uh,
trouble down the drain.
I thought, yeah, how do I forget that, right? Uh, I thought I liked that stuff. I got into it, very funky. I think that one had some really nice key work on it, some synth stuff, and but the title track and prelude, as those come in, it kind of kills the tempo of the album for me a little bit, or a lot actually. And then, like you said, there is that pickup in the middle. I think there's some. It's kind of spacey and atmospheric. Then you get the flute. There's some synth stuff. The second half obviously is much better. Like George said, kind of the first half of that, you're just kind of like, this is just a really odd. It's really odd for this type of an album. I think it kind of throws you. But Mating Drive and Prince of the Sea are just stunning for me. I love those two tracks. So I have to agree with George. If the whole album had been like those two, we've got a lot of work to figure out where we're putting things. But that's going to be my number three.
Yeah, we have to agree the artwork is pretty cool though.
Oh yeah, great cover.
I love the cover.
Yeah.
What's your three, Chris?
My three is I don't have it here. I couldn't find it, but it's this one. Mouzon, Mind Transplant. Um, this one rocks harder than the Lenny White album. This is like more of a rocky fusion album. Um, let's see, I wrote some notes here. There's two tunes on it that I really like. Carbon Dioxide and the tune with Golden
Golden
Rainbows with
Rainbows.
Tommy Bolin. Those are like modal tunes, kind of moody, has a really strong melody. Like I remember the tune after I heard it. More of it's more of a song-based stuff, and rather than this, relentless fusion jamming. Um, there's a vocal tune on it that really doesn't have to be there, right, George?
That's true.
Very
Um,
true.
there's some great guitar playing on it, though. I think is Lee Ritenour might be on there, and also Jay Graydon.
Jay Graydon.
Yep. Yeah. Three hot players, man.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid album. I liked it. Not like amazing, but I preferred it over the Lenny White album. It's more up my alley. So that's my number three.
Pete, where you headed?
I've been flip-flopping two and three back and forth all week. Um, I'm gonna go with Venusian Summer by Lenny White for my number three. Kind of pains me to do that because I really like this album a lot. I don't really have the issues you guys do with it. I think start to finish, I really like it a lot. I don't mind the little breaks that we get that where it lightens up on the intensity a bit. I think it starts off great. I think Chicken Fried Steak is a really cool, funky tune. I love Away Go Troubles Down the Drain. Yeah, the first half of the suite is a little uneventful, but it makes up for it in the second part. The prelude is kind of a waste of a minute, but it's only a minute. Man, Mating Drive and Prince of the Sea are just terrific. I mean, the guitar playing on this album, Ray Gomez and this Doug Rodriguez guy. I don't know what else has he done. I don't know him from anything else.
Yeah.
He's great on here too. And man, that like duel between Coriel and Dimiola just absolutely smokes. And there's some great keyboards on here too. You got David Sanchez, who we're going to talk about at the end of the episode, play some
Mm,
great stuff on here. Jimmy
that's
Smith
right.
is on here. Larry Young is on here. All these great players. I really, really like this a lot. Um, I think, is it as well written and intense and just wonderful as like Return to Forever? No, but I think it's a really, really good album. And, he's got a couple really good albums. It's either my favorite or my second favorite because the Pirates album is really, really good too. But I love it. Like I said, I had this as number two. I moved it to number three. It went back to number two, number three. Um, there's a couple things on my number two that I think just kind of propelled it to number two. But yeah, really good. I like it a lot. But it's my number three.
Yeah, I think I prefer Astro Pirates. I really like that one.
I love them both. I think they're pretty exceptional. But
And number three is the Cobham. Um, I've got the least years in with this. I only got this, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. Um, because I'd always heard it was like a bridge album between two better albums. It was just kind of like a over urban, they went too far with it kind of a thing, but none of that is true. This is cool funk stuff. Um, yeah, the horn work is great. I guess if there's a beef to be made, it's most of the songs are a little underdeveloped as far as, you know, what they do. They're kind of straightforward, short stuff, but it's all grooving. I mean, as I'm listening to it, I like the whole thing up until what we said. The drum solo is unnecessary for me. And I'm with Eric. The last song, it's not a bad song at all, but for some reason, it doesn't. I never listened to it and feel like it grabbed me. Like I find myself drifting during that song. It's long, but yeah, I just maybe it's because that one's you got the acoustic bass on that one, and it feels a little detached from, and then it's after the drum solo, so it kind of feels like an addendum. But I just can't get into it like I do the first six. The first six tunes all slap, so I'm all about that. So I had to put this at my number three above the white.
It's really cool to hear Schofield in this context because if you're like really familiar with I don't want to say the more modern Schofield, but the stuff he's been doing since like the 90s, right? He's in this kind of groove that he's been doing for like 30 years. To hear him in the 70s doing a little bit more rock-based soloing, I think is pretty cool. Because he can do like basically any style, but it's been a long time. With Miles, he played some stuff like that too. But I love hearing the really early stuff from him because it's just so far removed from the way he plays today, in my opinion.
Yeah,
That's
his
true.
playing changed.
Yeah, yeah.
Eric, what's your two?
I'm going with the Mouzon at number two. This one really connected. I mean, we talked about the guitar players. You got Tommy Bolin, Jay Graydon, Lee Ritenour. Jerry Peters on keys, I think is terrific on this too. Um, Nitroglycerin smokes. That's Bolin, I believe we said. Golden Rainbows as well. The slide work on that one, that kind of surprised me a little bit. Um, Hearing slide on these records, but I think it's terrific. The Some of the things people do, just get it out of there. The well. No thanks. Don't need that one at all. I like Happiness is Loving You. I thought it's got a really catchy lead. I like the harmony guitars. It's one of those, it's going to bring it down a little bit, and then the record comes back up after the vocal track with nitroglycerin. I think, Chris, you mentioned ascorbic acid. Nice quick runs, intense drumming on that one.
Hmm.
And I think that's got both Graydon and Ritenour on that, if I'm not mistaken. Carbon dioxide, I like the organ Peters uses in that one. That's really good. The only downside on this one is I thought it rocks. I love the guitar playing. It feels very repetitive when I actually sat and listened to this because, like you were saying, Chris, when we get down to the wire, I'm playing and trying to play these over and over, and I'm like, the songs themselves are to me anyway. I thought they were, they find a groove or they find something, and it seems like there's not a ton of changes going on. But I'm listening to the guitar stuff and everything over the top, and that's what clicks. And you're like, oh man, these are great players. The solos are great, but the songs themselves seem pretty repetitive to me when I actually listen to the song structure. So I can't say that's a downside because I think it's a rockin' record and I love the playing on it. It just I don't know that the songs are all that adventurous. They're good, they're catchy, and they stick with you. So I guess, that's as important as anything else. And that's why I'm going with Mouzon at number two.
Hmm.
What do you got to say, Chris?
Well, the one thing, these three albums, the Mouzon, the Billy Cobham, and oh God, I can't remember.
Lenny White.
Well, anyway, they're all funk based. They're all 75. Funk fusion that was like a thing, for a couple of years. Funky fusion. So I chose the Billy Cobham for my number two because I thought I found this album to be a better produced album. Um, the songs, a lot more went into the arrangements of the songs. It had a polish to it that the other two didn't. Um, just it is one of Bill. It's not my favorite Billy. It's probably not in my top three Billy Cobham albums either. But it kicks ass, and the players on it. I mean, the Brecker brothers are on it. John Scofield sounds great on it. That last piece you guys mentioned, um, it's like almost like a Return to Forever, like a Chick Corea has a Latin feel to it, right? Has the acoustic bass solo in it. I think there's a trumpet solo also. That reminds me of Chick. And really nice piano solo in that song. I wish I could remember the name of it. I can't even read it. It's so small in this. Like it's like tiny. But it had a beautiful piano solo. And
Moody Modes.
what's that?
Moody
Moody
Mouse.
Modes, I
Moody
think.
Modes. That's right. Moody Modes. I like modal music, so that's probably why I liked it. Um, yeah, so it's just a really great professional recording. Billy sounds great. Yeah, it doesn't need a drum solo. I never cared for drum solos on studio albums or live albums, unless it's inside of the music. It's like a break within the music. But unaccompanied, a drum kit. But I think that was a thing back then. This was kind of new for drummers to do this in the 70s. Billy Cobham's Spectrum album, he's got all those drum pieces with the random samplers going on. I really don't need to hear that anymore either.
We
But
know you can play, Billy. We know you're amazing.
yeah,
Just
so that's why I chose it. It just seemed to jump out more as just like a really better produced album, and the songs were. You know what it reminds me of is cop show jazz. I mean, like I grew up with the Streets of San Francisco and Beretta and all those shows, and they had tough, jazzy scores, and they
Yeah,
were not far removed from this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of good players were on those
yeah, right.
those
You-
scores. Lee
you-
Ritenour was all over those things. Larry Carlton was. So this album should be called Cop Show Jazz.
that I was thinking the same thing, Chris. I'm seeing somebody run down an alley or something. That's
Yeah, it's
you could
cool
right?
though. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it was great. Loved it.
pimps on the corner. This is um, and also Barney Miller maybe. Barney Miller had a lot of this stuff, jazzy stuff. Lalo Schifrin, the guy who did the Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry movies, they all kind of have stuff like this in it in the 70s. Whole lots
Yeah,
of
he did the
horns and rocking guitars.
the original Starsky and Hutch theme.
Right. Or even Charlie's Angels. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All that stuff was really well done, well produced music. This is just on a virtuoso level. Got Billy on drums. Anyway, that's my number three. No, no, my number two. Excuse me.
Two, yeah. Let's hear about you too, Pete.
I'm gonna go with Mind Transplant by Mr. Mouzon. There's some songs on this album which rank right up there with some of my favorites across all four of these. Uh, but it's got a god awful vocal tune on it, which knocked it down from even consideration for being number one. I think first of all, we could talk about the guitar players all day, but Mouzon's playing on this album is relentless. He is just like he's so in the groove and he's so up front in the mix and just love it. Just I mean, he's so good. We talk about some of the other guys all the time, but man, this guy was one of the greats of this time period. Just so good. But yeah, I mean, you guys have mentioned some of my favorite tunes on here. I think Bolin is incredible on here. I would argue Bolin might even be better on this album than he is on the Cobham album. I know that's maybe no, I don't know. He's doing some amazing stuff on here. He's got some amazing playing on both of those albums. I'd argue his best playing in general is on the Cobham album and this album. And even though I love the stuff he did with Deep Purple and I like his solo albums a lot, but man, he's just ripping it up on here. And the James Gang too. He plays amazing on the James Gang. But he's using all his tricks. I like the slide guitar. He's got the Echoplex going. Some great stuff on here. But yeah, let's not forget, how good Jay Graydon and Lee Ritenour are on this album as well. And Jerry Peters is so good. Like I said, the only song I don't like is the vocal piece. The rest of it just absolutely smokes. To Eric's point, I think this album probably rocks more than any of the others, although the one we haven't mentioned yet, it's got a lot of pretty rocking stuff on it as well. But I love it. I think it's great. It's one of my favorite fusion albums from this time period. Doesn't need the vocal stuff, but unfortunately, going forward, he would start doing a lot more of that. Vocals don't belong in fusion, folks.
No,
We say it all the time, but keep it instrumental. But the record company's like, oh, we got to have a hit. You're not going to have a hit with an album like this. Come on, forget the vocal piece, ditch it. So anyway, that's my number two, and it's a good one. Love it a lot.
when I heard Tommy Bolin's guitar solo in Quadrant 4 on Billy Cobham's Spectrum album, that changed my life. That was like a proto Van Halen solo. That was insane. It's still to this day is a milestone guitar solo.
That's ferocious.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
with that
pretty
Echoplex?
ferocious on here too, though. I think
No, he is. I just don't
that's
think
that solo's longer. I think that has the he they let Billy let him go on for quite
yeah.
a while, which is great.
I don't think they captured his sound right on this album as well as on the Spectrum album. It's like in your face. It's just a better that guitar just like is burning the speakers on that album. It's just, maybe it's just me, but Tommy Bone's great. Rest in peace.
He is, in my opinion, one of those guys that died way too early. He's like one of the great what if guys.
Oh, definitely.
Like we got
Definitely.
some really cool stuff from him when he was alive, but there's not enough of it. Everybody talks about Hendrix, and yeah, I get it, but I think we saw a lot of what Hendrix was all about. I don't know if we really saw everything from Tommy Bolin in that short little span of time. I think he would have gone on to do some amazing things if he would have lived.
Yeah, I agree. He was young too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they all were. I mean, was he 27? I know Hendrix was 27, right? They had the
If that.
27 club.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Tommy may have been younger.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Way too young.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And number two is the Mouzon as well. This album is just the first thing that comes to mind when I think about this album is energy. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
it's adrenalized. Um, I don't know if this has ever been proven out, but the rumor was that he was taken aback by Spectrum and he wanted to match Spectrum in every single way. And part of that was the ferocious nature of it. And he wanted to be more ferocious. So there's a ton of up-tempo stuff on this. Mind Transplant, Carbon Dioxide. Basically, my favorites are the scientific-y sounding ones, carbon dioxide, ascorbic acid, and nitroglycerin. Those three. Wow. Is that a coincidence that they were named like that? I don't know, but those three kick my ass. Um, I will say that, like I think Eric said, a lot of times they just play the riff and just go on and on.
Mm.
Song development wise, Spectrum kicks the shit out of this. So
Mm.
if he was trying to do that, then he didn't meet the mark. But I mean, the energy on this it's infectious. It really is. I can only echo the thoughts about some of the things people do, unnecessary. Although I've heard a lot worse, honestly. Um, but yeah, the rest of the album, not much bad you can say about it. Mouzon as a player, chops wise, he's right there with Cobham. I don't think he's quite as interesting, maybe, but I mean, when he lets his hands go, he really is something else. He's got a couple other good albums in this period. Not quite as good as this, I don't think. But yeah, it's just a great, great record. I see it on a lot of must-have 70s fusion album lists. It's probably right there. I mean, you should have it if you're a fan of this genre, I would say. So it was an easy two for me.
Yeah.
Eric, let's hear about our number one.
I was gonna say we got a four square for number one, right, Mr. Tony Williams? Well, I don't think I have to say much other than Alan Holdsworth, but being that I always talk about guitar players, I think Alan Pask was amazing, absolutely amazing. Not that that's a revelation for anybody. I wanted to listen more intently because Holdsworth is just going to take my attention. The bass playing, drumming on this, everything is just this is 5 star. I don't know really what else to say. This is a perfect There's not a moment on this record that I dislike. I love everything I'm hearing. It always, we've talked about this before on other shows, the fact that Holdsworth could have ever doubted himself for whatever reason is mystifying to me when you listen to something like this. He's just, and I know everyone, Fred and those are, Red Alert destroys me when I listen to that. I just think that is just amazing. That's probably my favorite playing of his on this one. Um, just across the board. I really I love the sounds Pasqua uses on this. I think the keyboards, I love when they're playing in unison. You'll hear that a lot, maybe not so much solo wise when Alan goes off and does his thing, but there's a lot of stuff within those songs where they're just playing together. Uh, and I think, that Rhodes sound always kills me. The closer, the bass and drums are just propelling that track. I mean, and I've said that, we're talking about amazing drummers, so I guess that's no surprise. But I know you guys are going to have a lot to say as well. I don't know that there's much you just mentioned it, George. This is an album you have to have. If
Yeah,
you're a Fusion fan, you have to have this. There's no excuse. I'm a newbie and this has to be in the collection. The 5-star record. That's really all I can say.
agree, Chris?
Agreed. 100%. Holdsy. When I first heard Holdsworth, it was from the first UK album, it was in 79, and then I had to find everything else that he was a part of that I could get my hands on. And this was one of them, along with the Bruford albums and the Ponty album. And then years later, I got the Gong album, Gazouse, and then Bundles on Soft Machine. And he left Soft Machine to play with Tony Williams for this album. And this album kills. And Alan Pasqua is a great foil for him. I like the fact that he's just whipping electric guitar and then a Rhodes solo. It's a breather, it's a relief, but they're good Rhodes solos. Really good, but they're not trying to, showboat Holdsworth. They're all there for Holdsworth, to support Holdsworth, and Tony Williams sound kills on this too. That open hi-hat, Mr. Spock. Oh my God. Great album. I'll never get tired of this. Ever. Sounds like he has a phase shifter on his guitar. Do you guys hear that? Like there's something on his guitar sound, like it's like kind of a tremolo or something. No?
Not sure what it
Maybe.
is. He's got something going on
There's
there.
something going on there,
His
right?
tone is a little different on this album than some of the other ones we just talked about.
Yeah, but it's killing. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, 5-star album, Eric. Agreed.
Yeah, Pete agrees.
Yeah, I mean, it's my number one as well, obviously. It's one of the classics of this style of music. We talk about like Romantic Warrior and Intermounting Flame. There's this. Also, it's up there. There's not a bad song on it. There's no weak points. Yeah, Holsworth is the star, but I mean, Williams is killing it. I love the electric piano, the Rhodes solos from Pasqua. The bass playing is great. There's some really high energy stuff on here. I think Snake Oil is one of the great album openers in Fusion.
Yeah.
It's just relentless. It's so good. And then you got classics like Fred and Protocosmos and Red Alert are amazing. Mr. Spock is great. You can tell, especially on the tunes that he wrote. So we're looking at Fred and Mr. Spock. You can kind of tell where he's going to be going in his solo career. There's little elements. He would go like even further out on his solo records, but you can tell the kind of songwriting that he was going to do going forward. But I love that everybody's writing on this album. There's tunes from everybody. It's so good. The production is great. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really good. And it's funny how we talk about it all the time, but man, this guy like did all these appearances and all these bands. He did the Ponty album and he did the two albums here. He did the Soft Machine album. He did the Gong album. He goes and plays with Bruford. He goes and plays with UK. I mean, he left his stamp in such a huge way with all these bands and artists during a real short span of time and then went solo. And I mean, we talked about it all the time here on this show. It's like, I don't really know if he ever topped what he did with all these other artists in his solo career. Sadly enough, he's like the ultimate sideman. He really
Yeah.
is. And as a sideman, he becomes a star of the show. And he
Yeah.
delivered on every one of these albums, and especially this one. Great, great album. Love it.
Yeah, this 5 year span, you could it's like a Hall of Fame career based on a
Right
5 year
there,
span.
exactly. If he did nothing else after the UK album, we'd still look at him at this the exact same way.
Absolutely. I mean, and like you said, I think this is, I mean, I'm sure people love his solo albums, but for me, this is when I think of Holdsworth, this is the period that I think of. I think his writing is better in this period. It's more like Erica said, it's less obtuse. Like some of the stuff on the solo albums, it's wicked cool, but it's a little out there sometimes. This stuff is more digestible. I mean, it's really, really good. All the songs that he wrote in this period, I'm struggling to think of one that isn't really good tune. Um, one thing to note too is supposedly Jocko came by when Williams was trying people out for this band. Yeah, I think he made a good move telling Jocko to hit the door because maybe you have a more grounded guy like Tony Newton,
Mm.
and then it becomes more about what how Holdsworth and Pascal play off each other.
Yeah.
If Jocko's there, you know he's going to be sucking up the solo space. So it might have been a happy accident that Jocko didn't stick around. I
And I
mean,
look at the trio of Doom, right? As kind of cool as that is, I mean that was destined to not work out,
Mm.
right? So
yeah, uh, it's just beyond amazing how far they fell with Million Dollar Legs. To go from this to that is shocking. I mean, that'll that'll goes to show you what vocals does to fusion albums. Just
yeah.
A/B those two albums, and you see why you don't do vocals.
There's
I
a few
mean,
good tracks on there, but as a whole, it pales in comparison. Yeah, it's
yeah, it's like another band. I mean,
No one talks about it.
no,
No, I have it on here. It's a double. Both albums are on here. I can't
I got
listen.
the same one. Yeah.
Somebody must have been whispering in his ear. Okay,
yeah,
get out of you, Tone. You can do a hit. You can get a hit in there. And Holders was like, "What? What am I gotten myself into here?"
yeah. No, this is whatever we want to say about a great album. No bad songs, 5 stars, must have. Desert Island of the 70s fusion. You just easy number one. But I mean, I knew that putting it in the square would be like that, but this is one of those albums that again, people were like, how has this not been on the show? It wasn't on the Holdsworth show, and we hadn't done a drummer square yet, so like I gotta put Tony Williams in. We gotta talk about this album. It's just so good.
Yep. Yeah.
It sounds like too like the energy is so good on that album. It sounds like they recorded it live in the studio. You know,
Yeah,
I
it
don't
does.
hear any overdubs. It just sounds a really good live in the studio album. They're all excited to play with each other.
Yeah.
What I hear. I mean, I probably was done that way. It's a real live sounding. You really get the feeling that they were playing together.
And this album is how he got the Ponte gig. Ponte heard this album and said, I gotta get that guy.
Oh yeah, no wonder.
Glad he did.
Yeah.
Too bad he never toured with Ponte. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Holdsworth.
So the George's Pick is an album that has been requested a couple of times. I know Arnold B, he wanted it, and a couple of the other viewers. David Sanchez, Chorus of Feelings. His debut album, he comes out of the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen, wanting to do something definitely different. You know, he's got talents beyond what Bruce lets him do. So puts this little band together. I think these guys were just guys that he knew. I'm not sure about that, but I believe that's the case. What do you think about it, Eric?
I actually got introduced to this through SOT. I was on an album homework assignment, and it was Sean Tonar who picked this one for me. So I was extremely impressed. Obviously, I I knew of David. I think probably more so because I'm not a big Springsteen fan. I knew the history, but through his time with Gabriel. Um, I get a good mix on this. I get a real proggy feel with like Sweet Cassandra, the opener, kind of an ELP. There's some ELP that runs through this record too, at least to my ears.
Yeah,
And
his
then
Moog work is very Emersonian. Emersonish, whatever the word is. Yeah, for sure.
I definitely get that vibe on a couple tracks. And I think, you kind of sit back and think about this as you're listening to it. And I'm like, good Lord, this guy's playing keyboards and guitar. And to have that kind of talent, I mean, obvious, you know why Springsteen would recruit him. And then he obviously has played with a ton of people and just going through this. I kind of like there's a lot of times where I'll point out where I don't always feel like things work. And with this record, kind of like I said, the opener has that more of a proggy feel. Um, and then there's the ELP stuff. He plays piano. There's kind of this little whimsical part in there. Um, and then I think Come On If You Feel Up to It, that kind of falls more into the fusion that's funky and rocking and great drums. And I even the bass motif kind of caught me in that one. And then you get like the East India, where that's almost, I hate to use this word because people take it the wrong way, but it's got that new agey atmospheric kind of thing, but it works. And then Dixie has that dark twist um, to that, folk song, whatever it would be called, traditional piece of music. Joyce 8 kind of goes back to that more contemplative, atmospheric, beautiful piano playing in that. I just think this guy's terrific. I've meant to explore more of his work and I haven't, so shame on me. But this is a terrific record. I think Billy Cobham produced this, right? I might have read that at the last minute, but I think that's correct. So a lot of tie-ins there because you mentioned how Sanctious appears on Lenny White's record, I believe. So it was a good tie-in, I think, for this square. But I like the variation. I like you get the real proggy stuff. You get definitely some fusion. You've got more of you get a lot of his piano work. He's a terrific musician. I mean, five-star musician. How about that? We'll put it that way. So another highly recommended disc from what I've heard on this. Is it David Sancious and Tone? Is that kind of where he went for a record or two after this? Kind of had more of a band
Yeah, that
going
was the
on.
next one. Yeah, that was the next one.
It's
I
the
gotta
same
pick.
guys, but yeah.
Okay, I got to pick that up too, or those up
Vocal,
because
vocals too. Tonehead vocals.
Uh, so
Yeah.
you like it too, Chris, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with him. I had that. I have a few of his other ones. Talented guy, multi-instrumentalist. This album is almost like symphonic fusion. It's very ambitious. The arrangements, there's a lot going on. Classical, jazz, funk, rock, a little gospel. He has a gospel thing I hear in there. It's all over the place. It's pretty impressive. It's not like the tunes don't blow me away, but it's really pleasant. It's impressive. I saw him many years ago open for Gentle Giant, and it was just him with a
wow,
bank of keyboards and a guitar, and he was like plays keyboards, and he plays guitar over a sequenced pattern that he had going on his keyboard on his rig. And that's the first time I saw him. We were like, wow, this freaking guy is great. It's kind of a Jan Hammer dude. Um, yeah, he opened for Gentle Giant. It's great.
wow,
Chris, what tour was that? Was that one of the latter Gentle
It was the
Giant tours?
last one. It was Civilian.
Civilian tour.
It
Okay.
was at the Palladium on 14th Street in New York.
Wow. Okay.
Yep, and I remember that. It was an amazing show. Gentle Giant was, of course, incredible.
I went to the Palladium not too long before they closed that place down. It
It
was
was like
you still see
82 or
good
something.
shows in the 80s there, but yeah, it's by like 87, I think, or 89. Done.
Yeah, yeah. I remember going there. I remember going to see Pat Metheny's group there, and they pulled out all the seats, the orchestra seats. So we were sitting on folding chairs. They were already getting ready to, flatten the place, turn it into a disco.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
Fun,
But
Pete.
anyway, yeah, he's really great. I bet it drives him nuts playing for Springsteen, playing like those 1 4 5 chords for hours. I mean, he's all over. He could do so much.
What are you thinking, Pete?
It's a good album. I like both this and the Tone album. I think they're both really good. Like Chris mentioned, it's pretty adventurous. It's a lot of different styles on here, But man, it's like you get so wrapped up into how great a keyboard player he is, and he's throwing like everything at you. I mean, there's
Hmm.
Moog, there's electric piano, there's Hammond, regular piano, whatever, and all of a sudden this blistering guitar solo comes in. And I love that he's like so good on both. And he arranges everything, wrote everything. It's almost like whoever else is in the band, who cares? It's the David Sancious show. But yeah, I mean, the one thing about this record, and I kind of always felt it's kind of the same thing with the Tone album. Um, it's not as tight as like some of the other albums we're talking about today. You know, you got some of these multi-part pieces, and then because that stylistically it's all over the place, it doesn't come across as tight and
Focused.
enjoyable listen, maybe as some of the other albums we're talking about. But I mean, the playing wise, it's amazing, and it's really it's a must have album in your collection if you're exploring this type of music. And it's just a shame we didn't get a lot more from him during this time period because there's really not that many albums from him. But yeah, well worth getting. I like it a lot. It's a good one. Great album
I
cover.
think what you're saying about the focus, I think maybe that's why people seem to prefer the next album, Transformation. You got 4 songs on that, much more, tightened up what they were doing. The title track was like an 18-minute tune.
Yeah.
That's the one Eric will love, the Transformation, because the guitar playing on that one is really, really good.
I
I
think
mean, he's
there's a little more guitar on the follow-up than there is on this record. I mean,
Okay.
this record he's got a couple cool solos, but to my memory, I think there's a little bit more guitar on the next album.
Yeah, I would totally agree. He sounds like McLaughlin on Sky Church Hymn 9. I mean,
Yeah,
that's incredible.
yeah.
And then by the end of the decade, he's doing Just As I Thought. And there's prog stuff on that. I mean, he's got a couple prog vocal tunes and got Jeff Berlin on that one. He sounded kind of like Holdsworth on some of that stuff. So he's all over the place, but all really good.
What's
Yeah,
the blue cover, the album with the blue cover with Tone?
True Stories.
true.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
that's
that one. I remember listening to that one back in the day. That was good.
He put out an album a couple of years ago, like right during the pandemic, called Eyes Wide Open, which was sent to me and I reviewed it. And that's actually pretty good also. And the guy could still play like really, really well. You know, and musically it's more kind of like new agey type stuff, but the guy can still rip on keyboards and guitars. So it was cool kind of hearing something from him after so many years, because I think it'd been like 20 years or so since he put out
Wow.
an album.
Yeah, he was on the road with can't remember the name of the band, but it was a super group with Oz Noy, Jeff Berlin, and Dennis Chambers. Uh, yeah, they did a tour. They didn't do a record, but they did do a lot of gigs. So I don't
Did
know.
they have was
I
there
assume
a
they were
band
both.
name?
Yeah, it's like something like Mogadishu, Mofulo, some kind of word like that. Like it definitely began with an M. And yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but they did not record. They just played shows.
Huh.
Ah, I saw Osnoy just the other night. He's really great.
With that acoustic stuff, or
No, he's got a new album out with another guitar player.
oh, okay.
Oh, Andy Sinowitz or something.
Yeah. It looks, yeah, he's really
That's a
good.
good record. I reviewed that for the website. I like that record.
Yeah, he
And he's
plays
got a
well.
straight ahead jazz one now too, Chris. A lot more no fun or something just came out. Uh,
Okay.
that's
Uh,
a lot more straight ahead jazz, which I hadn't heard him, at least from what I've heard of him. I hadn't heard him do more of, he's pretty more straight ahead jazz. I like it though. It's good.
For a US fusion guy, that dude is a road warrior. He plays live a lot. He's constantly out on the road in one lineup or another.
Yeah, he's amazing.
It should be noted that this album ended up as the George's pick because I got like 50 something 1975 fusion albums, and Pete had all but two, which weren't
Oh,
that they weren't that savory of picks for me. I didn't think they were good discussion points. So I picked an album that, the guys did know, but people were asking for it, so I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about
yeah, I was psyched I had all of them. It's like, yes, I got all five.
it.
Doesn't always happen, right?
right?
I'm gonna
So
dig
that's
into
it on
some David.
75.
I'm gonna check out some of that other David Sanchez this week now. He has those
Yeah.
old 70s albums.
Yeah, they're worth hearing. They're all really good.
He is really good.
So, George, you want to give a little hint to what folks can expect next month?
Yeah, I could do that. I know a couple times last year, the second half of the year, I chose a couple topics that were a little more abstract, and I wanted to do that again. So the March Square is number bands, bands with a number in their band name.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay.
Fusion.
Yeah,
Huh.
and I enlisted our friend Cone Beckham because we didn't have him on all of last year. So I thought,
Wow.
yeah, it's
You
like
didn't?
I
Wow.
gotta have Cone back. Yeah, hadn't been since the end of 23. So I'm like, oh, let's have Cone back. Talk about number bands.
Cool.
Number bands. I don't think I could think of
I'm
one.
thinking of one right now.
Yeah. Matchbox 20.
You're out, Chris. You're out.
I know.
So tune in next month and see what the hell
Yeah,
number.
there you go.
There we go.
Bunch of Japanese bands, probably.
Mm, No.
No.
Well, yeah, I can only think of one right now. It's a 70s band, but I can't think of any others. I'm sure there are plenty.
805.
No, there wasn't that many actually.
Those are my boys, Chris.
I love that band.
Syracuse.
All right, well, tune in next month and find out what the four albums are. It'll be a mystery probably for another couple days till George lays it all on us. So we'll see.
All right.
And down below in the comments, George will put the new albums that you need to check out down below, and we'll list these as well. So you know how it goes, everybody. Rank these as you like them, right? From 1 to 4. Not an easy task because these are all four really, really good albums. And if you haven't heard any of them, please go check them out. Great, great drummer fusion albums from 1975. So till next time, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together, all the damn time. Please go and support Hellman and Nats. Chris, you got some new music coming out, I think, or in the works?
We have a new song that will be dropping then within the next week. It's a 9-minute tune called Sunday Drive. And it's a pleasant, groovy little tune, jazz rock tune. And then the second half of the tune, it gets pretty crazy. It gets really heavy. So we worked hard on it and hope everybody checks it out. It should be on Bandcamp and then, in all the streaming stores also.
So, looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah.
New music from Hellman and Nats. Very, very
Thank,
cool. Very cool.
thank you.
So go check that out and see you next time here on 4Fusion Friday. We got more stuff coming up this weekend. We got the UK connection. We've got ranking the albums all weekend long. So lots of good stuff happening here. And we'll see you in a month here on 4Fusion Friday. For Chris Fox, Eric Porter, and George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. See you
Good
soon.
night.